Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles, and welcome to my March wrap up and April TBR. So I feel like my reading has gone back to normal, which is great. I haven't read anything physically all year, but maybe that'll change sometime in the near future, and I can also get back to read what you own because I'm not doing so great. But as always, we'll start off with my monthly stats. So I read 7 books, no rereads. I had 4 DNFs, which feels like a lot. But I read 783 pages and listened to 66 hours of audio. 3 of the books that I read were fantasy, 1 was a mystery, 2 were romance, and 1 was sci-fi. 5 of the books were audio, 2 of them were ebooks, 4 of them were adult, and 3 were YA. My ratings were 1 2.5, 1 2.75, 1 3.5, 1 4.25, and 3 4.5s. which is also what I had last month. So 4.5s have been pretty good. I still have not had a 5-star read this year, which is kind of disappointing, but we'll see what happens, I guess. All 7 of the books that I read were novels, and of the authors that I was reading for the first time this year, 4 of them were repeats, none of them were new to me. The first book that I finished in March, which was one of my 4.5-star reads, was A Drop of Venom by Sajni Patel. This is the first in her Venom series, which is a mix of Indian lore and Greek mythology. I'm not someone who has ever taught mythology, so I don't always notice references, but this one is a retelling of Medusa, which I'm pretty familiar with. I really enjoyed this. There are content warnings for sexual assault that is typically known about the legend of Medusa, but I think that it was really well done. There's also a really good author's note in the beginning for content warnings and things like that, but I'm really enjoying this series and I'm glad that I picked it up. I did also read the sequel, A Touch of Blood, which I also rated 4.5 stars. This one is about Manisha's older sister, and this one is a retelling of Persephone. So there is a third sister, I don't know which goddess she's gonna be based on, but I'm really excited for it. I'm sad that I have to wait another year for it, but if you are a fan of YA fantasy, if you like mythology, then I would definitely recommend. Then I DNF'd The Love Simulation by Etta Easton. This is the companion sequel to The Kiss Countdown, and I'm really sad that I didn't like this one, but it was boring. That's all I can tell you. I DNF'd it at 51%, and it was, I don't mind a slow burn, but at 51%, we got nothing. Nothing, and it's forced proximity. Granted, there are other circumstances because Brianna, our main character, she is a vice principal. Her love interest is one of the teachers. So she has like a very strict policy of like not mixing her professional and personal lives, which cool, whatever. But then she decides to do this Mars simulation with a bunch of the teachers because she wants to raise money for the school library. There's just nothing between the characters, not a single thing, and I couldn't do it. I'm waiting for other people to read it and let me know what they think, but this one was a huge letdown. I also DNF'd Shadows of Justice by Brian Copeland. This is the second book in the Topher Davis series. If you remember, I read the first book in the series, Outrage. It was my first read of the year, and it was my first 1-star of the year. I was going to attempt to read it, however, I just don't see this author being capable of handling the content matter properly. It's about 2 parallel cases where women go missing. One is a white suburban housewife and the other one is a Black woman. And considering the content of the first book, I just don't see that going well. So I just let it go. I didn't care that it was an arc anymore. I will not be reading this author ever again. I also DNF'd Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. This is the first in the Dark Star trilogy. I don't know anybody who likes this. Not a single person. Everyone who I know has either started reading it and DNF'd or read it and kind of been like, I wish I hadn't. I don't really know what it's about, to be honest. The synopsis says something about finding a little boy, and I only got like 18 pages in, but the things that were happening just didn't make sense. I didn't know why we were there. I didn't understand the point. This just isn't for me. And my last DNF of March was You by Caroline Kepnes. I enjoyed this TV series. Well, let me rephrase that. I enjoyed the first 3 seasons of this TV series, and the final season comes out in April, and I'm going to watch it, but I don't really have high hopes for it, honestly. And being in Joe's head in here, like, yeah, it's obviously creepy when you're watching or whatever, but being in his head in here, it's like worse somehow. And I just don't want to do it. I just don't care anymore. I've also been told though that this is the only good book in the series, that it kind of goes downhill starting with book 2, so I'm just gonna save myself the trouble. Then, as a part of Jashana's World of Elon read-along, I read Age of War. This is the 3rd book in Legends of the First Empire, and I enjoyed it. I've already started the next book, and I don't think I like the way that Age of War ended and the way that the next book started. I don't know, I'm feeling a little disconnected from the series right now, but Michael J. Sullivan usually pulls me in with his endings, so hopefully that continues to be the case. But this one I did like. I rated it 4.5 stars. I never know how to explain what this is about because we're following so many different characters and we're moving to different places and different people have different roles in each book, and I don't know. If you like typical, I think this would be typical high fantasy. If you like that, then I would definitely recommend this, especially if you've read Rhaegar Revelations. I love Theft of Swords, and I didn't think that I was going to like this as much. I don't like it more, but I do still like it a good amount. Rhaegar's here currently. Legends of the First Empire is right here, so doing pretty good. Then I read So This Is Love by Mieko May. This is actually a companion follow-up to Take a Chance, which I read maybe 2 years ago and loved, rated it 5 stars. This one I rated 3.5 stars. The characters kind of just annoyed me, and I don't know. The female main character really annoyed me actually, because she meets this guy one day who is a celebrity. They have sort of like a random one-time interaction and think they're never going to see each other again. They end up running into each other a few years later, and then shortly again after that. She is very afraid of being in the public eye. She just doesn't want any sort of attention, doesn't really want people to know that she's associated with him, and so he literally does everything that he can to prevent that from happening. But when things are out of his control, she kind of takes it out on him, and I didn't like that, so it was just okay. I would definitely read from this author again. I just didn't love this one. Then I read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the Haymitch prequel to The Hunger Games. You know from reading The Hunger Games that Haymitch was in A Quarter Quell, and this is his games. I enjoyed it. This was actually really good, and I was surprised because I hated A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes so much, but this is definitely worth the read. If you like The Hunger Games, even if you didn't read President Snow's book, I would definitely recommend reading this one, especially if you like Haymitch as a character. It explains a lot about what he went through and why he is the way that he is by the time Katniss enters the games. And I'm really excited for the movie that's supposed to be coming out in 2026. So I will definitely be watching that and potentially rereading it before then as well. Then I read Finding Forever by Christina C. Jones as a part of my project, tackling her backlist. This one I didn't like. I rated it 2.5 stars, and can't like them all, that's fine. I think the characters in this one just really fucking pissed me off. I do not like when characters do things that hurt each other and themselves, particularly themselves, because why are you doing this to yourself? I didn't like it. I hated the male main character as well. Can't stand him for so many reasons, and I'll talk about it more when that next vlog comes out, which might be relatively soon. But yeah, this one was definitely not the one for me. But if you're interested in this one, we are following Tori, who's a matchmaker, and this one is a best friend brother romance. So if that's a trope that you like, you might enjoy it. And lastly, I read Guilt and Gina Ta'an by Mia P. Manansala. This is book 5 in the Tita Rosie's Kitchen series, which is a cozy mystery series that I liked the first 3 books of. And we're gonna leave it at that. I will no longer be reading this series. Book 6 is supposed to be coming out sometime this year. This was supposed to be a buddy read between Robin and I, and Robin DNF'd it and then just told her what happened. It's the typical amateur sleuth cozy mystery formula. However, at this point, how many times are you gonna bring in a tourist to murder them in Shady Palms? How many times? And why is that not suspicious? Also, I typically don't think that Leela is annoying. Robin has disliked her from book 1, but in this one, I couldn't stand this bitch. Also, I've never heard somebody talk about their ex-fiance so much. You are in a new relationship with a man that you allegedly love. Why are you talking about your ex so much? Who cares? I mean, I assume that potentially later down the line, the ex would maybe pop up, but I don't really care anymore. Also, there was like a lot of drama between Leela and her best friends that was never resolved, and no thank you. So if you're a fan of cozy mysteries, definitely keep going, continue, but I'm gonna call it quits on this one. I rated that one 2.75 stars. But those are all of the books that I read in March. Now I'm going to tell you what I plan to read in April. The first book that I plan to read in April, which is actually a reread, is Scorpka. This is book 1 in the 5 Queendom series by G.R. McAllister. This is about the rulers of these various queendoms as they're in the middle of what they call the drought of girls. For whatever reason, girls are not being born, so they're trying to figure out succession plans if they don't have any daughters for their queens. This was actually pretty brutal in a way that I wasn't expecting, but that was actually very beneficial to the story. I really enjoyed this and I rated it 5 stars. Now I'm rereading this because I did get an arc for book 3, Cestia, which is the conclusion. And while I'm a little disappointed that it's not 5 books and 1 per queendom, that might be for the best because I've also already read the second book, Arca, and I did not like it. So in my reread, I was contemplating skipping Arca. If I can find enough reviews that give me a good refresher, I will do that. Otherwise, maybe I'll suffer through it. But I'm really hoping that this third book is really good and she really sticks the landing. Also, the author follows me on Instagram for some reason. No idea why, but whatever. Then I plan to pick up This Poison Heart by Kaylin Bayron, but the first book is This Poison Heart, which I really enjoyed, and so I'm glad that I finally have the second one, and this will be a series that I can knock off of my list. In this one, we're following Bree. She has this plant magic that runs in her family, but she is adopted, and she doesn't really know much about her birth mother, and so she is trying to figure out how to wield her powers while also trying to learn a little bit more about her family history. There are some things happening in this town that they moved to, and it's all very mysterious, but I enjoyed the first book, so I'm hoping I enjoy this one too. I am planning to read, or listen to rather, Ruination because I watched Arcane on Netflix. Well, I was forced to watch Arcane on Netflix and I actually enjoyed it. So I'm gonna give this a listen. I don't really know what it's about. I haven't read a synopsis or anything. I don't know how closely based the TV series is on the book, but I guess I'll find out when I read it. I think my expectations are just sort of baseline. I don't think I'm gonna hate it, but I think I'm going to enjoy it just enough. I don't know, we'll see. I also have an arc of The Defiant Queen by L.R. Jackson. This is the companion follow-up to The Accidental Queen, which I loved and rated it 5 stars. I really need sequels of 5-star reads to also be 5 stars. So hopefully this one will be it. This one, I believe, releases maybe the 3rd week of April. So I'm hoping to get to it before then, but I don't really know what it's about. In the first one, we were following a girl who was actually in love with like a prince but didn't know he was a prince. This one is about both of their best friends who had a little fling in the first book, but I think they're going to actually lock in this one. So I think that I'm going to enjoy it. This is one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and so hopefully it's a better success than The Love Simulation. I'm also continuing my CCJ project, and so I will be reading the follow-up to Finding Forever, which is Chasing Commitment. I've already started this. It's about a character that I don't like, but it is what it is. It's fine, I guess. But anyway, that is everything that I plan to read in April. Let me know if you have read any of these or if they are on your TBR. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.